Along the coast of Iwate Prefecture, Japan, engineers built something meant to last forever. A wall of concrete, 40 feet high, miles long. It was built to stop the sea. But something strange happened. The wall stood. The sea pushed back. And slowly, quietly, life along this coast began to change in ways no one predicted. Fishermen noticed it first. Certain fish stopped coming close to shore. Others appeared in numbers no one had seen before. Tidal pools that once teemed with life sat empty. Then, in other places, something unexpected bloomed. Local residents began asking questions. Was the wall protecting them or changing the very ocean it was built to hold back? Marine biologists arrived to investigate. What they found was not simple damage. It was something more complicated. A shift in the relationship between concrete, current, and coastline. A trade-off no one had fully understood until it was already happening. This is the story of Japan's sea walls, built to stop disaster. But nature, it turns out, does not simply stop. It adapts. And what it built instead may be more surprising than the wall itself. The coast of Iwate Prefecture was built to survive the ocean. After the 2011 tsunami, Japan poured billions into concrete. Walls rose along nearly 400 kilometers of shoreline. Some towns called it protection. Others called it a scar. Either way, the sea wall stood. Cold, gray, unmoving. For a while, everything seemed calm. Then the fishermen started talking. A local fisherman named Kenji Sato had worked these waters for over 20 years. He knew every current, every season, every pattern the ocean followed. But the patterns were breaking. The fish are gone, he told a nearby researcher. Not fewer, gone. Species that once filled the shallow waters near shore had vanished. Entire nursery grounds empty. At first, officials dismissed it. Fish populations shift, they said. Nothing unusual. But then something stranger appeared. In tide pools behind the walls, thick mats of algae began spreading. Fast. Unnaturally fast. Some pools turned green almost overnight. Marine biologist Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka was called in to inspect the area. He expected erosion, maybe pollution. What he found instead confused him. The wall wasn't just blocking waves. It was blocking something else, something in the water itself, something tied to how the ocean breathed along this coast. Tanaka took samples. He checked oxygen levels. He checked temperature. Nothing matched a normal coastal disruption. He stood at the base of the wall, staring at the algae bloom crawling up the concrete. Then he noticed something on the surface. Cracks. Fine, spreading cracks, patterns that looked almost deliberate. He knelt down for a closer look, and what he saw next made him call the prefecture office immediately. The cracks weren't random. They followed a pattern, spreading in narrow lines across the concrete surface, almost like veins. Dr. Tanaka pressed his hand against the wall. It felt different than it should. Rougher. Porous. He called in a structural engineer named Ryo Yamamoto to inspect the same section. Yamamoto had built sea walls for over a decade. He knew concrete. He trusted concrete. But this wall was behaving in a way he had never documented before. "It's not failing," he said. "It's changing." The two men began testing sections up and down the coast. What they found unsettled them. In some areas, tiny organisms had colonized the concrete itself. Barnacles, mollusks, strange colonies of algae feeding directly on the mineral surface. The wall wasn't just standing in the ocean anymore. The ocean was starting to grow on it. Kenji Sato, the fisherman, watched the researchers work from a distance. He didn't need lab equipment to know something was wrong. He pointed toward the water beyond the wall. Fewer boats than usual. Quieter mornings. "The sea used to talk to us," he said. "Now it just sits there." Tanaka didn't dismiss the comment. Fishermen noticed things scientists sometimes missed. That night, reviewing satellite images of the coastline, Tanaka spotted something odd. Sediment patterns near the wall had shifted dramatically over 5 years. Not slightly. Dramatically. Something was rerouting the natural flow of sand, nutrients, and marine life along the entire shoreline. And whatever it was, it had been happening for years, quietly, unnoticed, until now. Tanaka requested a full survey of the coastline. The prefecture agreed, but reluctantly. No one wanted to admit the wall might be the cause. A team of researchers, including Yamamoto, spent 3 weeks mapping the shore behind every major wall segment. What they found went far beyond a few cracked panels. In some zones, sand had disappeared entirely, replaced by hardened, compact sediment. In others, sand had piled up in unnatural mounds, burying old tide pools completely. The coastline wasn't just changing, it was rewriting itself. Yamamoto stood at one site where a childhood fishing spot used to be. Now it was a flat stretch of gray silt. "This used to be alive," he said quietly. Local elders were interviewed next. Men who had fished and farmed the coast for generations. One rancher, Isao Fujita, whose land bordered the shoreline, described something he had never mentioned to officials before. Storm patterns had shifted. Waves that once broke far from his property now struck a nearby drainage system with unusual force. "It's like the sea found a new way in," he said. Tanaka connected this to something in his data. The wall wasn't simply blocking waves. It was redirecting their energy. Like a stone diverting a river, the wall was pushing water pressure sideways, forcing currents into places they had never traveled before. And those redirected currents were reaching neighborhoods believed to be safe. Tanaka felt a chill he couldn't explain with science alone. If the wall was doing this to the shoreline, what was it doing to the towns behind it? He requested inland flooding records immediately. What he found next made his hands go still. The flooding records told a story no one had connected before. Small, localized floods. Nothing severe enough to make headlines. But they had increased steadily year after year since the walls were completed. Tanaka spread the reports across his desk, matching each flood site to a section of wall. Every single one lined up. He called Yamamoto immediately. "It's not random," Tanaka said. "The wall is pushing water somewhere. We just found where." The two men returned to the coastline with new equipment, measuring wave pressure at different points along the wall's base. The results confirmed what they feared. The wall's flat, rigid design was reflecting wave energy back into the ocean instead of absorbing it, the way natural dunes and rocky shorelines once had. That reflected energy didn't disappear. It traveled sideways, gaining force as it moved, striking weaker points in the coastline, drainage systems, and low-lying farmland. Fujita's flooded fields weren't an isolated incident. They were a symptom. Tanaka realized something that unsettled him deeply. The wall built to stop one disaster may have been quietly creating another, smaller, slower, and far less visible. Local officials were hesitant to accept this. Admitting the seawall had side effects meant admitting a multi-billion-dollar project had unintended consequences. But Sato, the fisherman, wasn't surprised. "The sea always finds a way," he said. "You block one door, it opens another." Tanaka stared at the coastline, now understanding the deeper mechanism at work. Concrete could hold back a tsunami, but it could not hold back an entire ecosystem's need to move, breathe, and adapt. And adaptation, they were about to discover, came with consequences no one had planned for. The prefecture finally agreed to act. Instead of adding more concrete, engineers tried something different. They began restoring sections of natural coastline nearby, reintroducing sand dunes, rocky outcrops, and shallow tide pools alongside the existing walls. The idea was simple: let nature absorb what concrete could not. Sato watched the first restored dune take shape near his old fishing grounds. He said nothing at first, just stood there, arms crossed, studying the sand. Weeks passed. Then, one morning, he noticed movement in the shallows. Small fish darting through the new pools. Not many, but some. Tanaka's team continued monitoring the site for over a year. Flooding in nearby farmland dropped. Wave energy that once redirected sideways now dispersed naturally through the restored dunes. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was proof. Fujita's field stayed dry through the next storm season, the first time in years. Yamamoto, reviewing the data, admitted something engineers rarely say out loud. "We built a wall to fight the ocean," he said. "But the ocean doesn't fight. It just moves. We should have built with that in mind from the start." Japan's sea walls still stand today, protecting towns from another tsunami. But along parts of this coastline, something quieter has taken shape beside them. A partnership. Concrete and coastline working together instead of against each other. Sato still fishes these waters. Fewer boats than before, but mornings that speak again. Sometimes protecting a coastline means more than stopping the water. It means understanding where that water wants to go. If this story showed you something you didn't expect about how nature adapts, subscribe for more real stories like this one.